We like that. Woo!
Woo! What's good, everybody? Welcome to the Pull Up and Show. My name is BJ Matthews, aka B. Just before we get started, follow the YouTube page, the Pull Up Basketball Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Twitter, TikTok, Pull Up Basketball Podcast. Like, share, subscribe on all of our YouTube videos. Hit that notification bell, buy a subscribe button on our YouTube page, get our updated content. You know what I'm saying? As well, share the information, the content with your friends who love the game of basketball. Let's get it popping. Y'all know the drill. Hit that like button. You know what I'm saying? Wipe your shoes before you enter the house. Like button, comment. You know what I'm saying? Sit back, relax, have a drink, and get ready for the show and sit back and relax. Let's get it going. All right. So I understand we had a couple games tonight. We had the Celtics beat the Bucks, as well as we had the Warriors just pull out a nail biter, really, which is somewhat a surprise to me because not even a surprise because I knew Memphis was gonna come out fighting and swinging, but just how bad the Warriors shot again and still was able to prevail. They gotta stop playing with their food, but that's another video for another day. People coming here, hit that like button, y'all. Appreciate y'all, love y'all. But let's get into it. I want to talk about a specific subject regarding actually the MVP was announced today with Nikola Jokic of the Denver Nuggets winning the MVP award for the 2022 NBA season. And for those who do not know, about the MVP award, basically it's been an award that, who's the most valuable player to your team throughout the entire, league. Not really concerned the best player, but more so who's the most valuable. So basically, if you didn't have that player on your team, where would your team be? And that's what the most valuable player, a year award revolves around. So if I look at, this season, you had the three top MVP candidates were Nikola Jokic, who won it, Joel Embiid, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Devin Booker, and Luka Doncic. Those are actually the top five. John Morant, DeMar DeRozan was in that mix as well. But those were the top five candidates was Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Devin Booker, and Luka Doncic. And, of course, I have my pick, but I'm going to get into that a little later. First of all, I want to say congratulations to Nikola Jokic for winning the MVP. Let me just be the first to say Nikola Jokic, I enjoy watching him play because he's very fun. He's bringing back the skills for the big man as far as, of course, passing the ball, dribbling, shooting, scoring. And let's just also get on board that it's a great thing that these international players are coming over here and allowed to, basically, show their talents as well. And, it's going to bring more money and revenue to the sport over here in America. So I'm not against bringing, international players over here to play. So I want to get that out the way. So with that being said, congratulations, Nikola Jokic, for winning the MVP. There's actually been a lot of, backlash, surprisingly, that I've been seeing on social media after Jokic was announced the MVP earlier this morning. And basically, if you think about it, it's a discussion to be had because really this MVP award could go anyway. It could have went to Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid, or Giannis Antetokounmpo. And I actually, surprisingly, before the season started, I had picked Devin Booker to be the MVP because of the simple fact that they will have the best record coming off last year in the finals. I felt that the momentum would carry on from the finals into this season. So I had Devin Booker winning, but of course, he didn't get it. So that's going to, actually go into some of these other subjects I'm going to talk about. But let me just first ask y'all, with Nikola Jokic winning this MVP, do y'all agree? Do you agree that Nikola Jokic deserved the MVP this season? Do you think that Nikola Jokic was deserving of the MVP? Or do you think that you should have gave it to somebody else? Should have went to a Joel Embiid? Should have went to Giannis Antetokounmpo? Should have went to um, Devin Booker, Luka Doncic? Who should have won the MVP this season? I'm gonna get into my pick in a little bit, but I want to hear from you guys. What is y'all's basically y'all criteria for this MVP award? You know what I'm saying? That's what I want to talk about. That's what I want to know. 1 second. All right. I need to hear from y'all. Who was the MVP this year? All right, so Jokic deserved it. What's up, soccer updates? Jokic deserved it without a doubt, in my opinion. Why do you feel Jokic deserved the MVP? Soccer updates. Like I said, this is an open channel. It's an open panel. I want to hear from different people on why certain players got the MVP. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna get into my pick, but I need to hear from y'all. Nikola Jokic of the Denver Nuggets. Why do y'all feel deserve the MVP? Because we're gonna get into the next banner on why I'm asking this question, and it's why it's necessary to ask because I think we need to clear up a few things with the MVP race. So I need to hear from you, soccer updates, or anybody in the chat on why you feel like Nikola Jokic was deserving of this MVP. So I'm gonna get into this next panel on what is the criteria. Criteria basically, what determines the MVP? Is it the wins and losses? Is it you having the statistics? Is it your impact? Is it how you match up to other MVP candidates when you play them head to head? I mean, what is the criteria? Because for quite some time, it's kind of changed a little bit. That's what people kind of complained about. One day or one year it'd be about, wins and losses. The next year it can be about statistics with a triple double. The next year it can be about impact. The next year it can be you don't really know. And as far as these voters are not really releasing the information on how they determine who the MVP is. So only people can really just wonder how they picking these MVPs year by year. Right. So this is a conversation we need to be had. Needs to be had, especially with the MVP just being, released earlier this morning. It's a very appropriate time. So the criteria for me, I'm gonna go into my criteria first. As long as I watch the NBA and basketball, the criteria for me has always been simple. Three things. It's been first year wins. He said he played the most games, had at least 500 assists as a center. His impact, he was super efficient in the season. Okay, okay. I appreciate that, soccer updates. I'm gonna put that actually as a part of the comment. Basically, so basically, when it comes to this MVP conversation, um, the criteria for me has always been this. First of all, it's about your wins. How many wins and losses do you have each season? Is your team top four team? Is there a bottom four team? Where does your seeding rank when you talk about who's the best player or who's the most MVP, most valuable player to their team? You gotta put wins and losses first. That's what we play the game for. It's about your wins and losses. Everything else comes second, third, fourth, and fifth. So that's the first thing I'm looking for. Where does your team rank by the end of the season? Then I'm looking at your statistics. I'm looking at your statistics. Actually, no, no, no. I'm looking at your impact. How do you uplift your teammates? Are you one of those guys that play for you or you play for your team? When you play with your team, how do they look when you're on the court? How do they look when you're off the court? How do they look um how do you look when you play against other teams, MVP candidates? That's what I'm looking for next. Then I'm looking for your statistics. How much are you averaging? Points, rebounds, assists, steals, blocks. Um, you can even go into advanced metrics, PER, things like that nature. What do you bring to the table numbers wise? Right? So it's all about wins and losses first, impact, and also head to head matchup second, and then your statistics. Those are the three main criteria points. That's how I choose my MVP. So with that being said, I guess that gets out the way. Um, we gotta talk about who I have for the MVP. Who I have for the MVP. One second. Who I have for the MVP. Now, there's a lot of people saying that this MVP race was probably the most closest race in a number of years. I somewhat agree, but also somewhat disagree. Because the person I chose, really, to me, you can say it was a close race, but you can also say that the guy who's most deserving has been the most consistent. That's where I kind of separate everybody from. That's how I really separate everybody. Who's been the most consistent in those three type of categories that I just named: wins and losses, impact on your team when you're not playing, and on when you are playing, as well as statistics. So my pick was Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid was my MVP. Okay, so here's the reason why. If I go through, first of all, we start with the wins and losses, right? Let me see if I can pull this up real quick. I don't want to, lead y'all astray. So Joel Embiid for the Philadelphia 76ers, he led his team to 51 and 31. For Nikola Jokic, they were 48 and 34. For the Milwaukee Bucks, if I'm not mistaken, they were, let me see, 51 and 31, and then the Phoenix Suns were 61 and 18. Now, if we're going by numbers and if we're going by standings, the Suns obviously have the better record. They have the best record. That's why I said I do not fault anybody for picking Devin Booker. I do not. I will not. Argue with it. I won't try to um, backtrack it. If you have Devin Booker as your MVP, I do not have no gripe with that because it's supposed to be wins and losses first. That's why if y'all remember Steve Nash getting the MVP back in 03 and 04 over Kobe and Shaq, both years. Now we're gonna say Steve Nash is a better player than Kobe and Shaq. No, but he did have the better team, and he was leading them to wins. So that's what it was about. So I look at that kind of here, wins and losses first. Then I look at your head-to-head matchups. How do you match up to other MVP candidates? Because we gotta look at this. When it's a close race like it was this year, we gotta look at how you look against these other candidates to see who was the better player and the more impactful player. So if you look at a few of these key matchups, Joel Embiid let's go against Nikola Jokic. Now, when they played each other in Philadelphia, I remember I think it was in March. It was in March or April. Joel Embiid had 31 points, 9 rebounds, and I believe 5 assists. Nikola Jokic had 22 points, 13 rebounds, and I want to say 7 assists. So this is the thing about Nikola Jokic fans that I really have to, always remind them. This is a statistical award first. They go straight to statistics every time they want to make a case for Nikola Jokic. Advanced metrics. Anytime you ask Nikola Jokic fans, what is the case for Nikola Jokic winning the MVP? It's not about wins and losses. It's not about head-to-head matchups to other great MVP candidates. They go straight to statistics. And my thing, it's never been a statistical award. I mean, that comes with it, but it's never been the number one thing when it comes to who should be the MVP. Like I said, if that's the case, they should have gave the MVP to Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal the year they gave to Steve Nash, who averaged like 15 points and like 10 assists. We all know Kobe and Shaq were better players. It's just, again, Steve Nash had the wins and losses. He had the better record. Anybody here hit that like button? Um, so I have to always knock that down with Nikola Jokic fans. When Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic faced each other, even though the Denver Nuggets won, anybody who watched that game knew who the better player was on the court. It was Joel Embiid. The more dominant player was Joel Embiid. The reason why the Nuggets won that game is because of their bench outscoring Philadelphia 46-14. And that also goes back to my point again that Philadelphia is not as good a team as Denver. No matter how much the media wants to try to shove that down people's throats, if you go through the team stats from points, rebounds, and assists, the Denver Nuggets have better team stats than the Philadelphia 76ers. So how is it that the 76ers are a better team? If your team is better, those stats should revolve around that. You should be able to lead in those stats over the other opposing team. But that's not the case with Philadelphia. They're 18th in the league in points, they're 29th in the league in rebounds, and 21st in the league in assists. So they're on the bottom tier in each of those categories. So I can't say that Philadelphia is a better team than Denver. Now, if you want to say Philadelphia has more talent, okay, that's fine. But you can't say Denver or Philadelphia is not as good a team as Denver when Denver's leading them in all the statistics. Jokic leads his team in points, rebounds, assists. True, true. I got you. But again, beneath, here's my point. Philadelphia is still less than Denver, even though with Joel Embiid being the leading scorer in the league. How do you explain Philadelphia being low in points when they have the number one scorer in the NBA? That's telling you basically that if Joel Embiid's not scoring the ball, they're not really getting a lot of production on the scoring side. Same thing with rebounding. They're 29th in the league in rebounds, even with Joel Embiid averaging 11 rebounds a game. They're 21st in the league in assists. You want to know where Denver is? They're fourth in the league. Now, people may say, well, that's because of Nikola Jokic. True, he does pass the ball very well. But again, in order for it to be counted as an assist, the team has to be able to hit the shots. You could have Magic Johnson out there passing the ball. If your teammates ain't hitting shots, then it's not going to count as an assist. So that actually equates to having help. Will Barton, Bones Highland, Austin Rivers, JaMychal Green, DeMarcus Cousins, these guys are hitting shots for Nikola Jokic. Aaron Gordon, they're doing the dirty work for Nikola Jokic to the point where he doesn't have to play exceptional defense. So all these things, people just looking at just scoring the ball. They're not looking at the totality of basketball with points, rebounds, assists, blocks, steals, all that stuff in totality. The stuff that Nikola Jokic does, he don't have to play elite defense. Joel Embiid, he has to play both ways of the ball on elite level. But the Nuggets without Jokic only won 2 games. Philly won 6 out of the game without Embiid this season. So who would they play? Soccer updates. And I'll also argue this point. Look at this series right now with the Philadelphia 76ers and the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat, the first 2 games, people were saying they're going to run through Philadelphia. Joel Embiid comes back, and all of a sudden the series has shifted to the point where now that Philadelphia has a chance to win this series. That's because of Joel Embiid's presence. So that shows you how much they need Joel Embiid. Because if he ain't playing, then they getting swept. Right? What's up, Benny? I'm doing well, bro. How about yourself? He said Embiid needs to start winning some series. He has flamed out too much. I would like to see Jokic win more too, Blaze. Well, that's the thing, Benny. That's what I'm saying. Like this, I think this series is going to change, or this MVP is going to change a lot for Embiid because really, like I said, Philadelphia has a chance of winning this series. They have a chance, and that's because Joel Embiid is now part of the party. Like I said, Embiid's a better overall player than Nikola Jokic. He can do more. He can play both sides of the ball. Jokic is a player that plays one side of the ball and can pass extremely well. So give me the two-way player over the one-way player who can pass every time, just like Kawhi Leonard and Luka Doncic. Kawhi is going to beat him out 8, 9 times out of 10 because when it comes down to crunch time, I need a guy who can not only score but stop the other guy from scoring. And Luka will not be able to do that to Kawhi Leonard, but Kawhi Leonard can do that to Luka Doncic. Same thing with Jokic and Embiid. I would trust Embiid to guard Jokic way more than I'll trust Jokic to guard Embiid. Right? So That's those two. Giannis Antetokounmpo, I have no problem with him if he had got it. He was 51 and 31, but the only thing about Giannis Antetokounmpo is he has a better overall team around him than Joel Embiid. Right? They both split the matchups in the season. When Embiid went to Milwaukee and had like I think 40 something points on Giannis, 42 and 16, and then Giannis came back and played the fair back in Philadelphia. So it's a split. But again, I'm looking at the teams they have. Milwaukee's a better team than Philadelphia, right? So that's why I give the edge to Embiid in that category as well. They both were averaging crazy stats. I think Embiid's averaging 30 points and 11 rebounds, and Giannis averaged like somewhere like 29 and 12 or 13, something like that. So it's close, but I gave it to Embiid for that reason because they have the better team and what he had to deal with and had to pull his team up, and they have the same record. So that's why I give that edge to Embiid. Now, I'm gonna open the chat lines in a few minutes. Um, Embiid and Booker. Like I said, I don't mind if somebody picked Devin Booker over Embiid. I don't mind that because here's the thing: the Suns had the best record. I don't care who was out. I don't care who was injured. I don't care who was playing. The fact of the matter is, Devin Booker is the best player on that team. So, with that being said, the best player on the best team gets recognition. I don't have that trust in Embiid. Yeah, he needs to win more. I feel some of that with Jokic too. I'm gonna let you into the chat, Benita, if you want to, explain your stance. But we talking about this season. If you have Booker as your MVP, I do not mind it. But and what's crazy with Booker is people didn't start giving him no recognition until he beat Nikola Jokic in Denver towards the end of the year. I don't know if y'all remember that when Booker went to Denver and pretty much outbeat Jokic in his own house. So as far as I'm concerned, I think Booker was a more deserving candidate than Nikola Jokic. But again, they're going off the statistical advanced metrics to try to justify why they gave it to Jokic. There was a lot of backlash this morning, including from certain players like Steven Jackson, who said that Jokic, as great as he is, he should have not won the MVP, and I definitely agree. I don't agree with them giving it to Nikola Jokic over Joel Embiid because all he has to do is just average his same statistics that he's been doing the last 2 years, and he's gonna have the MVP. I don't know how Embiid wins the MVP with this criteria, which they just basically going by advanced metrics, because you got to look at the people who are voting. The people who are voting are analysts and uh, sports commentators and stuff like that. The Nick Wrights, the Chris Broussards, the Stephen A. Smiths, who are good at their job, but they don't know what it's like to be out on the actual basketball court. They have a different way of seeing the game from guys like me and other NBA players who actually play the game. Chris Paul is the best player. What's up, Andres? Um, all right, Benny, y'all see you tomorrow. Chris Paul is the best player in Phoenix. How is that, Andres? How is Chris Paul the best player in Phoenix? Jokic played the most games. He did, but it's not a big enough gap to just exclude Embiid. When they're looking at the MVP, they're not looking at how many games Jokic played over Embiid because the gap is not that big. And if you want to even go there, Embiid still had just as good as statistics and they didn't play as many games. Right? So, excuse me. Um, so those are my four candidates: Embiid, Giannis, Jokic, Booker, and then Luka Doncic. I mean, he has a small case, but I couldn't give him that edge. He kind of came a little bit later, but as far as being the most consistent, it's been Joel Embiid. It was not Nikola Jokic. It wasn't Giannis Antetokounmpo. In my opinion, it was Joel Embiid. So I think there's a flaw in the system. I think they need to change some things up, and they need to be a little bit more clear on what it means to be the MVP. So, what are suggestions to make it better? Okay, the suggestion I have to make this MVP vote better and take the flaw out the system is to let the players and the coaches vote. If y'all go back and a few back in the '90s, they actually allow players to vote for the MVP. They're your peers, the people who actually played against you and played with you. They had a hand when it came to voting for the MVP. Regular season MVPs are jokes. Yeah, at this point, Jordan, I agree. It's nobody knows what the criteria is. I just gave my criteria, but nobody wants to talk about the criteria no more. They don't want to be clear. And I think with Jokic, it just looks bad giving it to a guy who got walked down for a second year in a row in the playoffs. He got swept last year. Remember, he got swept last year when he had Michael Porter Jr. You had Michael Porter Jr. last year, got swept by Phoenix. Now you got gentlemen swept by Golden State without Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. I understand that. But we got to get off. I'm starting to think that I'm not going to even use that excuse anymore. Because even when you had Michael Porter Jr., you still got walked down. You still got swept by a less experienced Phoenix team. Your defense got exposed. So my whole thing is, I just think the bar is set very low for Nikola Jokic. Unfortunately, I think that we judge Joel Embiid harder than Nikola Jokic. I think people expect more from Joel Embiid. That's why he has to go out there and average, this amount of points, do this on the defensive side, go to all these playoffs, while Nikola Jokic can get bounced out in the first round and say, "Oh, he didn't have no help." Even though I highlighted how Denver has more help than Philadelphia as a whole in production. This is why I say we judge Joel Embiid more than Nikola Jokic. He's a better player. If you look at their whole careers and resumes, Embiid has done more better statistics, more All NBA teams, more All Defensive teams, drafted higher, drafted in the first a lottery pick. Nikola Jokic was a second round pick. So even coming into the league, Nikola Jokic was the better player, or Joel Embiid was the better player. Jokic really hasn't won anything since Murray, and when you had Murray, you couldn't guard. Yeah, he can't be who he's supposed to be without certain players around him. If he ain't got Jamal Murray, he's pretty much, just a guy out there, looking to make it look fun. But he's not gonna win nothing with being the guy without, his guys and his side guys. I can take Joel Embiid and put him on a team and automatically make them a contender because of how dominant he is with the game. But let me just get back to the points. I'm gonna open up the chat lines. Um, my suggestion is you gotta let the players and the coaches vote. I think it's an injustice to allow guys who have never played the game or who have not played at a high level to vote for an MVP award. That's crazy to me. They need to open up. If you're going to do that, at least even out the field and let players and coaches vote who actually are around these players day in and day out, who have to game plan for these players day in and day out to have a voice. I don't understand how is it make sense to to put um put it where it's just about basically just the analysts, talking about the voting. I think they should let the players and the coaches vote, in my opinion. What up, my guy? Show, what's good with you, bro? Salute. Um, I think they need to go ahead and change the criteria. I was on my man show this morning talking about this, and we're confused on what the criteria is. My criteria is very simple. It's about your wins, your losses, the impact on the team, and also your statistics. That's my opinion. I think that's what the criteria should be. And they need to even out the playing field by letting these players vote and the coaches like they did in the 90s because it only makes sense because, they're the ones who game plan it. But let me open up these lines and see if I want to come in. I'm going to drop the link. Drop the link in here. I'm going to let y'all come in here and cook. Say what y'all got to say. All right. So there's the link right there. If you want to come here and cook and what I'm saying, get what you need to get off your chest, man. I'm here to open up for everybody. Anybody want to come in here and cook and do what they want to do, man, I'm always open and open to hear everybody's opinions. YFMG Blood, what's up, bro? I know the record Jokic said was dope, and yeah, man, I felt yo, yeah, they gonna use this record, bro, to really put Jokic over Embiid. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what it's gonna be. Unfortunately, that's gonna be the criteria. That's what it's gonna be about. It's gonna be about Jokic having these amount of points and these amount of rebounds and assists, which is cool, but that doesn't supersede your wins and losses, which Embiid had a better record. It doesn't supersede the head-to-head matchups when Embiid and Jokic faced each other. Embiid was better, and vice versa. What up, Bubba? What up, Bubba?
And we send our best to Steve. Yeah, Steve, we want you to get healthy. Hate to hear about anybody tested positive there. Now, here's what we need to do with you.
Yo.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, bro. What's good?
What's up with you, Matt?
Chilling, brother. About yourself? What you got?
So, me personally, if Joel Embiid had won, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But I believe that Jokic also deserved it. But considering you said it should be based on impact on the team. Like, bro, if you take Jokic off the Denver Nuggets, bro, they don't make the playoffs. They don't even make the plan.
Okay. Now, I have to kind of do some push, but I would agree with you if it was the beginning of the year. But I think with DeMarcus Cousins on that team, he's a starter in the league on some of these teams. So I think if you bring a fully loaded Denver team, are we talking about if they have Jamal Murray or don't have Jamal Murray? I want to be clear.
Don't have Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr.
Okay, so that's a little bit different. Okay, so if you
we're talking about 2021-22 season, so
okay, so if you say without Jokic, do they win? So I still think they would be a good team because again, the fact that they're ranked higher than Philadelphia in all the statistical categories, I can make the case that Embiid has less help than Jokic. When they played each other, that bench won that game for Jokic. It wasn't Jokic himself. They outscored Philadelphia 46-14 in that game in their bench. So that equates to help. They had to take Jokic out the game because he was a liability on defense against Embiid. They put DeMarcus Cousins in, who was able to match Embiid's impact and his physicality. Because you got to remember, Jokic is not a physical player.
Right.
There's certain guys that I've seen Jokic get nullified against. I've seen guys like Nicholas Batum, Kevin Looney, Joel Embiid. When they play against these guys, Jokic somewhat struggles. So that tells me a little bit that you're not as dominant as put out to be. Joel Embiid, there's no answer for him individually. Can we? Do you agree with that, or you got?
I agree with that.
So if I'm looking at Joel Embiid, I'm looking at basically that there's no matchup that can really dominate Joel Embiid. But I've seen Nikola Jokic be nullified on the defensive side of the ball, so that factors into me like not only the better player, but who's the MVP. But go ahead. I'll let you finish.
Yeah, but bro, you gotta take into account who makes whose team better. Like Jokic makes his team better. Like he averaged how many 7.9 assists as a center. Not even Steph Curry, who a lot of people consider one of the greatest point guards of all time. Steph Curry has never even averaged 7.9 assists ever in his career. But Jokic was able to do that as a center.
Okay. Yeah. So
and Jokic is much more efficient than Embiid. Jokic shot like 50% from the field. Embiid shot 49.9. Okay, let me be good. 50%. But Jokic was much more efficient than Embiid from the field. What'd you say?
No, I agree. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, Jokic is pretty much efficient than him. And Denver, without Jokic, won only 2 games out of 8. Out of 8, yeah. They lost 6 games and only won 2. The Sixers, on the other hand, played 14 games without Joel Embiid and won 6 out of 8. So I feel
Okay.
like without these two players, if these two teams play, Philly is a much better team than Denver.
Okay. But you know they did play each other, um, and the better team when they play each other in Philly, that bench is what run Denver the game. This is why I gotta take into account the team is different now from it was at the beginning of the year. When they added DeMarcus Cousins to that team, they became a different team. So that's why I take into account that we gotta talk about which team are we talking about? Are we talking about the year when he first started this season, or talking about towards the tail end after the trade deadline? Because Denver became a different team when they had DeMarcus Cousins. So I think,
But Philly also became a different team when they got James Harden.
yeah, they did. So do you think they became better?
Philly?
Yeah.
I mean, not very. It was mediocre, I would say. Still, with James Harden, without Joel Embiid, Philly was not a good team.
Right. So again, James Harden has been streaky since he got to Philadelphia, right? Correct.
Right.
So my opinion and how I look at it, that James Harden has actually hurt Joel Embiid's chance of MVP. Because remember, the majority of the season, Joel Embiid's been the front runner for the majority. So when they started bringing in Jokic and Giannis was towards the tail end after James Harden got to the team. They lost those 3 games. Remember, they lost 3 games against very primetime teams: the Milwaukee Bucks, the Brooklyn Nets, and then the Denver Nuggets. Those 3 games towards the end of the season is what put Joel Embiid in those MVP rankings. That's why you started hearing Giannis and started hearing Nikola Jokic, which my opinion, I have no problem with Giannis winning it because his team not only had the same record as Philly, but also Giannis' statistics and his impact. And when he played Joel Embiid, he was the better player for that day. I can't say that about Nikola Jokic. When Jokic played Embiid head to head, Embiid was the better player. So that's really what I need to see on, who deserved the MVP. Now, if Jokic went out there and, did what, he usually do, had like 30 plus points and like 15 rebounds and like about almost 10 assists, like a triple double, then I would have said, okay, I'm giving it to Jokic, but that's not what happened. And B was scoring on Jokic head to head. He was playing defense on Jokic. It was hard for him to score. You could see he was the more athletic player, who was the more dominant player, the more aggressive player. It was Embiid. So again, like saying basically that Jokic gets the MVP, everybody goes straight to statistics. They go straight to advanced metrics. That's going to be the argument for him. So that's why I think I asked myself, how does Joel Embiid win this MVP?
And bro, they consider how do you play against playoff teams? They consider that too. And I remember Embiid didn't really have a good game when we played the Nets. He was so inefficient from the field. So I think that game kind of hurt his chances too. Like you were just saying.
Yeah. And Andres, if you want to come in here, man, come in here and cook. We let everybody's opinions. If you want to come here and cook, you can come in here. Hit that link. But yeah, that's what broke the camel's back. If he didn't lose those games against Brooklyn, Denver, and Milwaukee, then he would most likely, in my opinion, there would be nothing to talk about. But he left the door open. And also what he did too, it made a mistake. I know it's gonna bite him in the butt, is when he called out the media for telling him, I feel like they hate me. I feel like they hate me. That's why I think he went wrong by, going to the media and saying what he said. So again, like I just don't see how Embiid wins the MVP. I think again the bar is set higher, and you can agree with me if you want. The bar is set higher for Joel Embiid. He has to do more than Nikola Jokic. Jokic can get pit out the first round 2 years in a row, get swept, and still people yelling MVP, MVP. Embiid has to go through and win, get to the conference finals, has to, average 30 points and like 15 rebounds and do all that and be the best player on the floor. So the bar is.
I have a question for you right there, though.
Go ahead.
With Jokic getting swept, do you think that with Philly last season with Ben Simmons, you think they beat the Suns in the playoff series? Now I know they're not going to get swept, but do you think they beat the Suns in the playoff series?
It would be close because again, you gotta think of it. Who will be the best player on the floor?
Embiid, definitely.
Right.
But bro,
Right. So
Embiid was the best player, but we still lost to Atlanta. Philly lost to Atlanta in 7.
True that. But look at also the situation.
Okay.
Look at the situation with Ben Simmons, what he did. I'm not saying that. I think me personally with that whole situation, it was a mess. Doc Rivers calling Ben Simmons out, saying that he don't know if he can be his point guard. I think that was the wrong move because you don't do that to your star player. But I also think Ben Simmons mentally was not ready for that moment. I think he was not ready. Like you can tell, him passing up a wide open dunk because he's scared to get fouled. That has nothing to do with Embiid. For the most part, Embiid usually outside of that one series against Toronto, he's shown up to playoff. He's shown off in playoff situations. So,
but bro, Embiid has been swept before.
Yeah, he has. That's true. He got swept by Miami.
Nah,
but look at Miami and Philly now. So the fact that again, Embiid can come in and change this whole series.
Okay, bro, I have this for you. Just like you said, we got to stop saying that Jokic doesn't have no help. We got to take that out. In 2020, in the bubble, without Ben Simmons, Philly got swept by Boston. So
you say what?
You said that we got to stop saying that Jokic doesn't have any help because he got swept and he got gentlemen swept. And I'm saying that Embiid also got swept in 2020 without Ben Simmons when he hurt his knee or something like that in the bubble.
Right.
So my whole point is you need help to win playoff series.
You do need help.
Right.
So, but for him to get swept 2 years straight, for Jokic to get help, and then he don't really do nothing since he had Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., that makes me raise my eyebrow because I'm looking at like what's going on. Like if you the MVP and you get swept and then gentlemen swept, this ain't the same. This ain't the unbeatable Warriors with Kevin Durant. As much people want to make them out to be they're this unbeatable team, they're not. As you just saw this tonight, they almost lost to the Memphis Grizzlies without Ja Morant.
Right.
So this team can be beat, but it's only an unbeatable team when Jokic is one of your guys and people want to make the excuse for him. Again, they got swept last year against Phoenix. His defense got exposed. Chris Paul was tearing them up on the pick and roll. So there's holes in Jokic's game to the point that can be exploited that you can't do with Embiid. And that ties into me why I pick Embiid not only as the better player but also the MVP. But again, my solution to this whole problem is that you allow these players and these coaches to vote because I guarantee you, and I don't know if you saw Steven Jackson's video, but Steven Jackson basically said that Embiid got robbed. And I guarantee you a lot of these players feel the same way because they going up against these Jokic and Embiid. So it's like you know who the better player is, you know who the best, who should be the MVP, who is more deserving.
But who is more valuable to their team?
I mean, if you're going by the team statistics and what Embiid's doing now against the number one seed in the East and how he's turned this year around, I can make the case as Embiid. What it is with Jokic, again, we don't know how they would look if he wasn't playing because he ain't. How can I put it? If you give the Denver Nuggets a chance to play 20 games with this current roster with Jokic, I guarantee you they'll win at least more than half their games. Give them 20 games, I guarantee they'll win at least half those games. Go ahead.
With Jokic? No, I'm just asking a
What?
question.
No, without Jokic.
Without okay.
Because what Jokic brings, again, you have to put a certain system around Jokic to be successful. He's very good in the system that he's in, but he don't play really, he's a below average defender. They got guys on that Denver team for such as Aaron Gordon, DeMarcus Cousins, JaMychal Green, Will Barton, who can play defense. So you got that side cover. You got guys who can shoot the ball. Will Barton can shoot the ball. Austin Rivers can shoot the ball. Um, Bones Highland can shoot the ball. So you got guys who can score and play make. So you mean to tell me they aren't capable of winning at least half those games without Jokic being there?
I mean, they could.
Yeah, I just man, my thing is in like I congratulated Jokic for the MVP, but I just think they need to change this criteria up or be a little bit more um, clear about what it is, man. Because we can't keep switching
Splitting.
it up. We can't keep not being consistent.
Yeah, I agree with you saying the media people shouldn't have the most power in this voting system. Like I agree with that. Because they don't really play. They're not out there on the court, so they don't really know what it's like. It would be better if we put the power in the players and coaches who are around these players every day. I agree with that.
I'm not saying don't take it with the analysts. I'm not saying like they can't vote. What I'm saying is
Yeah, you're
let
saying that the coaches and the players should be more, right?
yeah, it should be given more to the players and coach. I think that's fair because they're not going to be biased for the most part. They're going to tell it like it is. Like if your peers is voting for an award, they gonna most likely be honest. But unfortunately, most of the analysts there's no way they can relate to the game. All they can do is look at statistics and numbers. That's the first thing that pops up. Advanced metrics of offensive box plus minus, defensive box plus minus, PER rating, all that stuff that you enter in a computer to determine who's your MVP. And I'm just like, bro, that skews the system. That means Jokic is gonna win it pretty much every year, more than not. And how does it look giving it to a guy who got bounced out of the playoffs? If you're a real MVP, you should at least still be getting to the second round and then beyond. So that's just my opinion. But let's see anybody else want to jump in, man. Somebody can talk. But what you got about this game tonight, man, with the Warriors, man? I want to hear your take.
With the Warriors game, I'll be honest, I only watched the fourth quarter. But when I look at the stats here, Curry got 32 points. Klay Thompson had a very bad game because he shot 0 for 7 from the 3-point line. I don't know what's happening to Klay. He hasn't really shot the three ball well in this series. And Curry also shot 4 of 14 from the three. Oh god, that is so horrendous. But he made some type of how you call it, record 500 threes ever in the playoffs. Congratulations to him. But I feel like the Warriors won this game more than the Grizzlies lost because the Grizzlies were up about 10 points, 7 or 8 points with about 5 minutes to go, and they somehow choked. Were forcing a lot of bad threes, and they wasn't driving to the cup. They had a lot of turnovers as well. And I feel like the series is going to end in Memphis in 5 games. If Ja Morant plays, they might have a chance. But if he doesn't, they're going home in 5.
Yeah, I I don't feel like Ja gonna play Game 5. I think he gonna sit out. Now, if they would have won tonight, I think he would have tried to come back and play.
But Game 5 is a game that you want to play because, like, your season is on the line and you have nothing to lose. I mean, you have something to lose, though, because your season is on the line. So you just have to give everything you have. I mean, if it's a serious injury, then okay, I understand. But if it's day to day, you should try. You should force yourself out there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go out on the limb, man. Um, I think it was a little bit childish for him to put that tweet out and then try to take it down. And I understand he's still, young. We know we all still young. We still make mistakes, but for you to put up that tweet and then take it down, you knew what you were saying was basically, BS. Like you try to put that on Jordan Poole, that he tried to hurt you when, like I was telling you, that play he got hurt was on Klay Thompson when he tried to close out for that three, where his knee hit Klay Thompson's elbow. So you just pretty much, to my opinion, were upset that your team got, blown out by 30.
Right.
So you went for an excuse and ran to the computer or to your phone and said that, by the way, Warriors broke the code. I'm like, man, come on, man. That just take the L. But
A sore loser.
yeah, I mean, that's just being a sore loser in my opinion, in my book. I think if Ja really wanted to play and they would have won tonight, he would be back for Game 5. But he don't want to look bad coming back and they get beat again, especially at home. After all he done talked and how the Memphis Grizzlies, been talking all year and
Ain't
showboating. And yeah, then that's my problem. Like I'm all for having fun and having being a young team, but some of the stuff they do, man, they ask for other teams to kind of run up the score on them, because when you giddy on somebody's logo, you dance on somebody's logo, what they did against Minnesota. I mean, that's just ultimate disrespect at the end of the day.
Yeah,
at the end of the day, like you front running, and then you can't take a L when somebody whooping up on your ass.
Yeah.
So, Tune In One Sports said Josh shouldn't play. It's over. Yeah, it is over, man. It's done. This was their best chance tonight. As a matter of fact, the Warriors were giving them the game to the point where I don't think I've seen Klay and Steph shoot this bad. Even if you talk about the first two games.
Memphis is so lucky because if Klay and Steph was playing good, they'd have blown them out in 3-4 games. Like,
man, Bubba, look, that's what I'm saying. Like it's almost as if they purposely tried to let them give a chance, because I don't feel like you already got blown out once, and the shots that the Warriors were missing were shot. I'm like, come on, like this. You guys make these shots in practice every day. You can't be that off from 3-point. So I think that they shot 0 for 15 from the 3 at one point. I'm just like, man, this is not Warrior basketball. This is not the Splash Brothers. Like, what are y'all doing, man? This is embarrassing. But to be honest with you, I think the player that saved the game was Otto Porter.
Right. He shot like 4-6 from the 3-point line.
Yeah, and Steph, and that's what Steph and Jordan Poole and Klay came along for the ride, because they was messing around, now hitting their shots. And then Steph, I think, iced the game with like 4 clutch free throws. But Draymond also, he played big on the defensive end. That block he had on Jaren Jackson towards the end. So,
and that was a bad shot by Jaren Jackson. Like, come on, bro. Can you get a better shot than that?
Man, they still young, man. But you know what's crazy though? I don't think next year they're gonna have a better chance. I think this was their best year.
Yeah.
I think with the Clippers coming back next year, the Nuggets gonna be full strength. Golden State's not going nowhere. Phoenix isn't going nowhere. You expecting the Grizzlies to have another year like they had this year with all them injuries, bro? Like, this was their best year.
It was.
Yeah, this was their best year. Like, they gonna have to pretty much wait their turn, man. Like, you dealing with a bunch of 22 to 26-year-olds, man. They not finna overtake these season championship teams like the Clippers and the Warriors and the Suns and the Nuggets. You're not finna overtake them. They're not gonna allow that.
Right.
So,
not at all.
I'm gonna ask somebody else if they want to come in. If not, I'm gonna close it down in a few minutes. But I'm gonna get your last take, Bubba, on this last one.
Sure.
What do you feel about this Bucks and Celtics series, man?
Tonight's game, I blame the coach. It was a Mike Budenholzer because
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
because in the first half you had them. Boston was really struggling. Like Jason Tatum was like 1 of 6 from the 3-point line, and Jaylen Brown was also struggling from the field. But they go into the second half, and Al Horford turns into he turns into Steph Curry, knocking down every 3-point shots. And Mike Budenholzer, instead of making the adjustment and taking Brook Lopez out of the game, he didn't do it. He kept Brook Lopez in the game, and Brook, Brook Lopez was not contesting. Not only Brook Lopez, nobody was contesting Al Horford, and he's been making shots in this series, but he didn't make the adjustment to like get somebody on him. He made 5 of 7 3-pointers, which kind of gave Jason Tatum. It kind of gave him some kind of confidence, and he started getting those easy shots. And he knocked down a big 3-pointer in the fourth quarter, and that kind of sealed the game. And he also had 30 points. Al Horford had 30 points, was super efficient from the field. Giannis had a pretty good game. I'm not gonna say he didn't have a good game, but I feel like it was the coach's fault because you don't let Al Horford go off on you like that. You don't give him open looks constantly and let him knock down every shot. He really had a lot of open threes in the third quarter, and Mike Budenholzer should have made that adjustment. And I was suggesting for him to bring back Bobby Portis because I didn't see Bobby Portis in the second half at all.
Yeah, I think the fourth quarter especially. I think Budenholzer is an average coach. I think of course, he has a championship, so you gotta give him credit. But I think he makes a lot of lineup bad adjustments. And I think he doesn't game plan for specific players at time. And I think that if you look at even with his timeouts, he doesn't use his timeouts how he needs to use them.
Right.
So if you look at the whole totality and the whole situation, man, I understand what you're saying. Who do you have winning the series?
I mean, I still have Milwaukee winning the series. But This was a game that they should have won. I feel like they had it because Jason Tatum was jacking up bad shots. Like, they was missing a lot of shots, and Al Horford just kept them in the game. And Milwaukee was up like 8 points. But they couldn't carry that off into the second half.
Yeah, Al Horford, man, people gotta remember he's had all-star since he's been an all-star before, man, and
Right.
you gotta respect any player at any point was an all-star that can go off at any time, especially if you look at that Boston team where they have guys who can carry the load, and so it ain't nothing for Horford to have like a game with 25 or 30 points, and erupt like he did tonight. And I think him and Giannis were drawing back to each other. That gave him some juices because Horford, he's a competitor just like Giannis is. So when you're dealing with two guys like that who ain't going back down, then you're asking for a guy like Horford to have a great game.
Right.
He's gonna play hard. He's gonna set screens. He's gonna play defense. He's gonna hit shots, and he had that dunk on Giannis to tie the game, which really gave him a lot of energy.
It did.
So
wait, they called a technical on Giannis when he dunked on Horford and kind of looked at him. Do you think that was a tech?
Man, we're gonna have to have a conversation about technical fouls on a different show because I don't think that was a technical. You taking the emotion out the game. You taking what basketball is supposed to be like. It's supposed to be emotional. It's supposed to be, stares and trash talking. Like that's part of the game. That's the excitement. You talk about the game. You leave that on the court. Get them off the court. You shake hands and you move on. But these refs, they taking full control of the game by not allowing the players to to have any real control. So they're not allowing the players to really
Show emotions.
show emotion, yeah, and dictate the game. And I'm gonna say this one point too, this last point. I got Milwaukee winning in 6, but you could see that they need Chris Middleton
Yeah.
because Giannis was huffing and puffing, tired. Um,
He was gassed.
he was gassed, and that's a contribution because the fourth quarter is Chris Middleton's time. That's when he takes over.
Right.
So you asking Giannis to not only play offense and defense and then be your closer. You only have so much. You only have so many hats. You only have so much energy. So if they would have pulled this game off, Milwaukee, I'm talking about, that would really solidify that Giannis is the best player in the league.
Yeah, I agree. Giannis was gassed because he was taking a lot of jumpers. I'm like, bro, why don't you take it to the cup? But I realized that he was so gassed.
Well, he did attack the basket. He was, I think, in the third a lot. He was really attacking the basket. That's why he got so gassed. But
he started settling for jumpers a lot. Backing the player down, then fade to the side and try to hit a jump.
okay, yeah, that's true. In the mid post, okay, I got you.
Right.
Yeah, man, it's going to be a hell of a series going back to Boston. I got them winning in 6, and I wouldn't be surprised if they win Game 5. And then closing back at home in Milwaukee. But any last things you want to say, bro, before I close it down?
Wait, what'd you think about the Miami Philly game last night?
I mean, I think it solidified the argument that Embiid, is the most valuable player in my opinion. I think all this was set up for him to prove just how much of it, because look how it happened. Embiid gets hurt in Toronto. He misses the first 2 games against Miami. Miami stomps on Philadelphia. James Harden is washed. They don't got enough depth. They're going to get ran through, blase. Embiid wasn't supposed to even play in Game 3. He was listed as doubtful. You got to remember, he's dealing with an orbital fracture in his face, a concussion, and a finger that's going to need surgery in the offseason.
Yeah, the thumb injury.
Right, his thumb. So that's a lot to deal with. First of all, that's not even talking about dribbling the ball. That's a lot to deal with mentally. So for you to be able to harness all that emotion and go out there and lead your team and just step out there, I give you credit already. But then for you to lead them to wins and tie the series up, that I think that's why you saw a lot of outrage, because they're like, wait a minute, this guy came back for 2 games and has already turned the series around. So what I think is going to happen now is Embiid, with him not getting this MVP, he's going to be playing with a chip on his shoulder the rest of the series. Yeah. I think when they play Miami, don't be surprised if they beat Miami tomorrow. Don't be surprised if Joel Embiid don't go out there and have like a 30-piece and like 15 rebounds and like 5 or 6 assists. Don't be surprised, because I already know he wanted that MVP and he feel like he deserved it. So now the only thing you can do is prove to the world why you're the best player.
Yeah, but bro, it's regular season. Like, we don't consider playoffs to be a part, because if we consider playoffs, then Kawhi Leonard should win a lot of MVPs, because Kawhi Leonard is a different player, totally different player in the playoffs as compared to the regular season.
True. I only say playoffs because this is what he's been doing all season. Like,
I mean, yeah, absolutely.
Without Joel Embiid on that Philly team, they are not a great. They're the same. They're the same. If you want to say what Jokic is on Denver, that's what Philly is without Embiid. Like, you're seeing it. You're seeing it now. That's what he's been doing all year. He had to deal with the Ben Simmons saga. He had to deal with getting players, traded from Seth Curry and Andre Drummond. He had to deal with James Harden, fat boy, had to come in the team out of shape.
Right.
So all this stuff he had to deal with and still lead his team the way he's led. And not to mention a boneheaded coach like Doc Rivers. I don't know how you feel about Doc Rivers,
Yeah.
but you say you a Clippers coach, so you should understand what I'm saying.
Yep.
Doc Rivers, anytime you face Doc Rivers, you got a chance of coming back and winning. As a matter of fact, you should be more comfortable when he's up because he only knows how to, blow series and make excuses. So I'm I'm not sold on Doc Rivers one bit. So this is all what Embiid has had to deal with. And for him to have to now do it injuries and do it like he just continues to impress me more and more.
Right. And bro, you said Seth Curry. I totally forgot about Seth Curry. Seth Curry was on the Sixers before he got traded. He was averaging 15 points on the Sixers, so he was giving Embiid a little bit of help. I don't think anybody in Denver was averaging double scoring digits.
No, they were. So if you look at there's 6 players on Denver in double figures. Will Barton averaging 16, Aaron Gordon averaging 14. Who else? DeMarcus Cousins averaging 10, Bones Highlands averaging 11. Jeff Green averaging 12. So 5 or 6 guys in double figure he averaging. And remember, these are all vets. These are all seasoned guys. Jeff Green, Austin Rivers, DeMarcus Cousins. These guys are seasoned. So you're not talking about guys who are still trying to make a name from. These guys are actually DeMarcus Cousins has been an all-star. Jeff Green's a great role player. Aaron Gordon was a leader on his own team in Orlando. So these guys, they're mature enough and they're seasoned enough to give good impact for Jokic. Now, Seth Curry, again, he did, have a high 3-point percentage from the 3. He did average 15 points per game. But he's not a guy that you can say and look at and be like, oh, you can bring a Seth Curry in, you automatically got a championship aspirations. You have an all-star. Like, that's not what that's not what he is.
Yeah.
He's a 3-point specialist.
Right.
So, but yeah, man, I'm gonna be up here tomorrow, man. Talk a little bit more about these playoffs, man, because I know they got some games on tomorrow.
Bro,
but hey,
I watched. Yeah, I watched your interview with the Clippers coaching staff department, one of those guys, and I really wanted you to ask him about the whole Kawhi Leonard why he wasn't playing thing, the ACL, because they said he was coming back and we didn't hear anything and he missed a whole season. Like, I wanted you to go into that.
Well, I can't. There's certain questions I'm not going to ask because, they don't allow certain information get out. So I can't ask that question. So before we even did the interview, he told me things that he couldn't talk about, and that's one of them. Basically, things that are going on, like with Kawhi's injury, that stuff is confidential.
Oh, okay.
So that won't be known from the public. But I understand what you mean. I know everybody wants to know, but I think he'll be back ready to go for training camp.
Okay.
Yeah, he should be back ready to go. But all right, Bubba, I'm gonna shut down the stream, man. I'll be back on tomorrow, man.
Sure, bro. Anytime.
Man, be safe.
You too. Peace.
Peace.